Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It's time to continue on with our update 1.48 car reviews with perhaps my favourite car of the entire update, the Honda Civic EG, which finally comes to Gran Turismo 7 in all that glorious detail. Now this is a car that's been on the elite car list for what feels like the longest time, and whilst in a sense this car did already enter the game with the RCR Garage Civic, it is now finally here and fully customizable to your own liking. So as always, let's start off with the price point for this car, rather quite low as expected at 52,100 credits. In terms of the PP rating, it's 396.53, and because this is a used car dealer vehicle, it will always come with a certain amount of mileage on it. In terms of displacement, 1595cc, an FF drivetrain, 167 brake horsepower, and of course it's a road car and such. In terms of weight, 1070 kg and naturally aspirated. In terms of customization options, there is plenty available as expected when it comes to the EG Civic. As you can see, we have the likes of wide body options, as well as for what feels like the first time ever really, a post-launch car has launched with an engine swap available right away. This car goes ahead and gets the B18C Integra 98 engine for 137,500 credits. It will jump up the base PP value to 426.53, 1,797cc, add a slight weight at 1,072, bump the power up to 198 bhp. Overall, it's a fairly solid swap. In terms of other customization options, there is the typical array of wheels, body kits, etc. So there is plenty to make this car feel like your own, really leaving nothing on the table when it comes to the typical options that we have. You have the likes of carbon bumpers, painted bumpers and more. There is also some, I guess, fair options overall that weren't really expected. Mainly the fact of that huge rear wing that can be installed. As you can see, the Type B rear wing, giving it that proper time attack track day vibe. We also have the options of a bunch of different grille options, as well as your typical bonnet pins and roll cages. So again, there is plenty of both major and minor options to really customize into this vehicle. One of my favorite things is the deletion of some of the grills on the actual bumper, or the actual number plate location swaps, which I always think is fantastic to see on these JDM vehicles. We also have the slight option in the livery editor to actually change the colour of the side lights from clear to the very bright orange. Again, a nice little hidden feature. So let's go ahead and actually talk about the car and review the car itself. We'll go ahead and review both the stock version and the fully upgraded default, as well as the fully upgraded engine swap version with that Integra engine. So obviously let's begin with the stock version straight out of the box. How is this car going to feel? And well, I must say that I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually forgot just how good these top of the range EG Civics actually were for that time. So obviously this generation is the sort of early 90s model. The EG Civic, in my opinion, is the best looking Honda Civic generation to ever exist. And to come to think that, you know, yes, there was other countries making hot hatches, but then Honda comes along with what at that time is a very futuristic looking style. It really is a design and overall style that really holds up very, very well. And at the time, it's almost spaceships level design. It really is a very, very attractive and good looking car. And the fact that this model right here is putting out 167 brake horsepower with VTEC in the early 90s at the front wheels is pretty ridiculous. Of course, the EG never got a Type R variant. That all started with the EK, with the generation after. However, this is certainly the closest thing you're going to get to that level of performance in terms of the time frame of the EG. Overall, it is a fantastic car straight out of the box. It's pleasantly, surprisingly good. In terms of obviously the style, I absolutely love this generation. In terms of the performance, again, massively exceeds the overall time period for the type of vehicle it is. It really feels like this car was massively ahead of really any other hot hatch on the market at the time, both in terms of style and in terms of performance. It's quite ridiculous. Now, of course, when it's not lowered and such, it does have a habit of really, a lot of body roll, a lot of moving around under the brakes and such. So in terms of its downsides of performance, if you don't like a suspension that feels like it's constantly on the move through the tighter corners, then this one might not be for you. However, what is relatively low power output to today's standard actually makes this a fairly controllable and fairly decent beginner track car straight out of the box. It also has a fantastic little engine note as well. Have a quick listen to this. Now, of course, one of the main talking points about the EG Civic is that it was pretty much everybody's starter car in those older Gran Turismo games, and it really does feel much better in Gran Turismo 7 than it ever did. Surprisingly so. I forgot just how good this car really was, and it really does bring back a flood of memories from the classic Gran Turismo games straight out of the box. This is just a great machine overall. So in terms of the stock version, I have pretty much no complaints at all for me. I absolutely adore this car, and it's fantastic to see it back in a modern day Gran Turismo with all those stunning and amazing details. So in terms of the overall, I guess, PP rating, overall time as well, it drops into the 400 PP category, and as you can see, it's our clear leader so far, even beating a much more modern hatch in the form of the Mazda 3 Bergen selection from 2019. Again, it comes in with a time of an 8 minutes 56.279, once again far exceeding expectations, and it is our current leader, of course, of that 400 category. However, if I did have to give it a bit of a criticism for the standard version, I would actually argue that the price is slightly quite high. Okay, 50,000 credits can, definitely not break the bank in terms of the Gran Turismo economy, but it does seem a little bit far-fetched when there is other vehicles in the used car that are much cheaper. However, of course, we are not done there with the car reviews. Let's talk about when those upgrades start coming onto it. Now, it's a little bit different this time around because we do actually have an engine swap straight out of the box for this vehicle. So I'm going to fully upgrade and review both the standard engine and the engine swap version with that Integra engine. Again, a brand new engine swap to GT7 and a fairly fantastic one. I was almost certain this would end up with the K20 swap, but no, it turns out they've gone for the Integra Type R engine swap, which in my opinion is a fairly fantastic swap for this vehicle. So up first, of course, is the standard engine, fully upgraded. Both cars are going to include the maximum amount of upgrades they can. Now, obviously, with a lot of these older generations of naturally aspirated Civics, their overall power output remains relatively low. However, most of the fun comes from the fact that when these cars are absolutely stripped out running racing tyres, they're almost like little go-karts, and that is definitely the feeling you're going to get from the EG Civic. It is surprisingly quick no matter which version you go for. In terms of this version here, which obviously doesn't have the swap, it is extremely light. It's so easy to just rev it out, throw it into the corners. You're talking around about 8,500 RPM for the rev range, which is again fairly ridiculous, keeping that VTEC there and kicking, and it will just scream at you and rev all day. Again, through the corners, fairly fantastic. I would say that this is one of the best chassis for a front wheel drive car that is in the entirety of GT7. It really puts that power down very, very well without, ending up constantly spinning those wheels out, which is something you do find with the, I guess, more powerful front wheel drive hot hatches in the game. This one feels just right, pretty much a beautiful little sweet spot for a front wheel drive hot hatch. So up and across the line, and of course we are not done there. We now have the engine swapped one. Of course, this is going to be putting out a fair bit more horsepower. That Type R Integra engine is fairly customizable. It's fairly ridiculously quick as well, and you can definitely feel it in this car. Now, on the standard engine, 8,500 RPM is fairly ridiculous to rev it out to the red line. However, with the Integra swap, we are now talking 10,500 RPM to rev out this little hot hatch. It is just absolutely bonkers. Add that on with that extra power. Yes, there's a slight bit of extra weight due to the fact that the engine block itself is just a little bit heavier, but overall it is not enough to take away from the ridiculous go-kart like feeling. With those extra revs and extra power, in all honesty, this might be one of my new favorite engine swaps in the entire game, and hopefully some of these more lower powered K cars can end up with these beautiful B18 swaps. It is absolutely fantastic, and do you know what, well done to Polyphony for not holding this back for another month and getting this swap put straight into the game. It really brings this car alive. Overall, it is just absolutely perfect for that street tuner or track day build. So let's have a look at the times for both of these versions, both the non-swapped and swapped version. As you can see, the pair of them fall into the 700 pp range and both of them top it. So obviously taking the top spot is of course going to be that Integra Type R swap. This Honda Civic ends up with a PP rating of 693.20 and does it in a time of 1 minute 9.474. The non-swap variant is a little bit behind, as you can see, a 641.87 pp rating and a time of a 1 minute 13.809. However, they absolutely smash the rest of this category, which includes the Plymouth XNR, Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint, and of course the Tesla Model S signature performance from 2012, which still sits rock bottom. Overall, these are setting the new standard for that 700 category. Overall, the Honda Civic EG is a fantastic addition to the game, and whilst yes, it's been in there in a sense with the RCR garage, I am very happy to see a base model in-game and one that can be customized to our liking. Anyway, let me know what you think of this car down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys, peace.